Myles Garrett should have owned the headlines. Breaking the NFL single-season sack record is monumental, the kind of achievement that cements legacy. But instead, the spotlight split. As Garrett's name trended, so did the fallout from Rex Ryan's blistering critique of Kevin Stefanski and Shedeur Sanders' fiery response. In any other week, Garrett's record would have dominated sports talk. But the NFL's new reality is different. A swirling mix of analyst feuds, coach firings, and player callouts where even greatness struggles to stand alone. Garrett's historic night didn't get buried. It got consumed by the league's ever-churning drama machine. That noise isn't incidental. It's structural. In this NFL, legacy players and rising voices are rewriting the rulebook on accountability. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. And influence. Sanders' refusal to let Ryan's critiques slide signaled a deeper tension. Who speaks of modern game and who still holds sway? As analysts fixate on coaching credentials, and teams like Denver and Jacksonville face scrutiny over postseason viability, the definition of success is fracturing. What used to be a league driven by quiet excellence is now propelled by loud moments, clashing narratives, and a relentless battle for credibility. Kevin Stefanski was officially out as head coach of the Browns, and the sports media world wasted no time diving in. What was already a messy NFL week exploded when the firing went public. Stefanski, who had led the Browns to multiple playoff pushes, found himself framed as a scapegoat for the team's broader dysfunction. But within hours of the announcement, things shifted from news cycle to spectacle. The reaction was swift, but not everyone had the same take. Some praised the decision, pointing to the team's offensive struggles, quarterback carousel, and failure to maintain consistency in high-stakes moments. Others saw it as a short-sighted move that ignored the deeper problems in the Browns' front office and player development. The debate had only just started, and then Rex Ryan got involved. Rex Ryan, who hasn't coached in the league since 2016, went full throttle on live TV. He compared Kevin Stefanski to Norv Turner. Yes, that Norv Turner, claiming Stefanski was part of a wave of offensive minds who just couldn't get it done when it counted. According to Ryan, Stefanski's tenure was plagued by wasted potential and failed quarterback projects. The phrasing wasn't subtle. He questioned Stefanski's credibility as a leader and flat-out stated that he wasn't cut out to handle a franchise with serious postseason ambitions. This wasn't a one-liner. Ryan kept going, highlighting Stefanski's lack of playoff wins and suggesting that someone else could have done more with the Browns roster. He treated it like a teaching moment, but viewers weren't exactly convinced that Rex was the right guy for that role. And then Shedeur Sanders spoke up, not on set, not through a reporter. He posted his response straight to social media, and it caught fire instantly. The Colorado quarterback didn't hold back. He called out Rex Ryan directly, pointing to the fact that Ryan hadn't coached in nearly a decade and had a losing record when he left. According to Sanders, Ryan's commentary lacked any real authority. He made it clear that someone with Ryan's resume shouldn't be throwing around judgments as if he'd been on the sidelines last week. It was blunt and it hit hard. Sanders didn't get lost in coach speak or try to sugarcoat anything. He called out what he saw as outdated thinking and challenged the idea that old-school credentials automatically gave someone the right to critique modern coaching decisions. In less than 280 characters, Sanders made it clear that the younger generation of players wasn't here to play nice when media figures disrespected people who'd actually been doing the work. Brown's Matches Master Collection. This wasn't just about Stefanski or Rex Ryan anymore. The Browns' season had been volatile from the jump. Quarterback injuries, erratic offensive performances, and inconsistent coaching decisions turned every game into a guessing game. Fans watched as the team oscillated between playoff promise and mid-tier mediocrity, never quite stabilizing. It wasn't surprising that the franchise decided to pull the plug, but the timing and messaging around Stefanski's exit made everything feel more chaotic. Ryan's harsh comments added fuel to a fire that was already burning, and fans were split. Some agreed with him, arguing that the Browns needed a leader who could adapt, evolve, and manage star talent more effectively. Others saw it as tone-deaf criticism from someone who hadn't coached a relevant game in years. The fact that it took a college quarterback to say what many were thinking only made the whole situation feel even more absurd. Right in the middle of the noise, Myles Garrett did something extraordinary. He broke the NFL single-season sack record. The moment should have been a pure celebration of individual greatness. Garrett, a cornerstone of the Browns' defense, had been dominant all year. His achievement placed him in the record books and gave Browns fans something to cheer about amid all the coaching chaos. The record-breaking sack came during a crucial moment, but the celebration was immediately bogged down by controversy. Opposing teams and analysts questioned the game stoppage used to mark the milestone. Some saw it as unnecessary and disruptive. Others pointed out that similar stoppages had occurred for offensive records in the past, arguing that defensive accomplishments deserved the same respect. Garrett, for his part, kept it professional but didn't hide how much the record meant. He spoke about the work it took to get there, the importance of the moment, and how it felt to accomplish something historic. He didn't drag anyone into the controversy, but the subtext was clear. Records like this don't happen every day, and they deserve to be acknowledged properly. As coverage of the sack record rolled out, the NFL found itself under the microscope once again. Was it favoring offense over defense? Were certain teams or players getting more favorable treatment? The discourse echoed the larger themes playing out in Stefanski and Sanders' drama. Questions about credibility, respect, and what leadership looks like in a league that's increasingly shaped by narratives, not just results. The Browns were at the center of the NFL's messiest headlines, yet again. It wasn't just Stefanski or Garrett. The entire organization was being scrutinized. Analysts questioned the team's direction, its approach to quarterback development, and whether the front office had any long-term vision at all. Some framed Stefanski as a casualty of inability to sustain momentum. Others argued he never fully adjusted to the shifting demands of modern NFL leadership. The firing opened the floodgates for debates about what success actually means for a franchise like the Browns. Is it playoff wins? Is it developing talent? Is it just surviving a full season without a complete collapse? Every talking head had a take, and few of them matched. The chaos reflected something deeper about the league, a growing divide between the old guard who prioritize results and a new wave that values adaptability and player-first leadership. Shedeur Sanders' clapback wasn't just a viral moment. It was a symbol of that generational divide. He wasn't trying to defend Stefanski out of loyalty. He was defending a larger principle. That credibility matters. And if you're going to call someone out on national television, your own record better hold up. His response resonated far beyond the Browns fan base. Younger players reposted it. Fans debated it. And analysts either praised his confidence or dismissed it as overstepping. But the message was out there. This is not the same NFL it was a decade ago. Players have platforms. They have voices. And when someone with a coaching career like Rex Ryan decides to go scorched earth, he's not going to be able to do it unchallenged. The clapback wasn't just a one-off. It was a signal that the next generation isn't afraid to step into the media ring and fight back when they feel disrespected. Shedeur's post drew attention because it was sharp, accurate, and confidently delivered. It pushed back on the idea that veteran status alone gives someone a right to tear down others publicly. It forced viewers to confront how much weight they're giving to media narratives versus on-field reality. And in doing so, it opened up a broader conversation about how the league is changing, on the field, in the locker room, and in the way it communicates with its audience. Kevin Stefanski's firing wasn't just about a disappointing season. It was about optics. NFL franchises know how they look matters just as much as how they perform. The Browns didn't want to enter another offseason with a head coach whose playoff resume could be counted on one hand, and whose quarterback situation never seemed to stabilize. But what did they expect when they cycled through passers like they were testing out apps? In reality, Stefanski walked into a role with chaos baked into the foundation. Injuries, trades, and questionable front office decisions made it hard for any system to take root. Sure, there were games where play calling fell flat. Yes, there were weeks when the offense looked like it was being drawn up on a napkin mid-game. But every coach needs a foundation, and the Browns rarely gave him one. That's what made Rex Ryan's commentary hit a nerve. His critique wasn't based on a reality Stefanski had to navigate. It was rooted in a nostalgic version of the NFL that doesn't really exist anymore. Ryan praised Norv Turner while slamming Stefanski, completely ignoring the different circumstances they coached under. Turner had stability in San Diego. Stefanski had a quarterback rotation that looked like a casting call. And let's not pretend Ryan's own record glowed with postseason brilliance. He had some success in New York, sure, but his fall in Buffalo wasn't subtle. By the time he left coaching, fans and analysts were already labeling his schemes outdated. So hearing him speak with that level of finality about someone else's coaching ability didn't just come off as harsh. It came off as disconnected. Shedeur Sanders saw that gap and went right for it. His tweet wasn't just about Rex Ryan. It was about challenging the culture that treats criticism like it's coming from on high. He pointed out that Ryan's own results weren't exactly impressive in the modern era. Sanders wasn't attacking the person. He was attacking the idea that being loud automatically equals being right. The fact that it came from a college quarterback made it even more powerful. This wasn't a league veteran defending a colleague. This was a rising star calling out the way the league handles criticism and saying enough. Sanders is part of a new generation that doesn't wait for permission to speak up. He saw what he felt was disrespect and decided not to let it slide. Browns matches master collection. All of this played out while the Browns were still trying to pretend things were under control. Week after week, they stumbled through games that felt like déjà vu. A few promising drives, a missed opportunity, and then the collapse. Injuries didn't help, but the disorganization was visible. There were coaching misfires, sideline confusion, and clock management issues that had fans pulling their hair out. But even then, firing Stefanski raised more questions than it answered. If the goal was accountability, where was that same energy for the front office? Where was the transparency around who made the calls that led to the quarterback chaos in the first place? It felt like a move made to calm the storm, not solve the issue. And as expected, it only made things louder. In the middle of all this dysfunction, Myles Garrett was the one thing that kept delivering. Game after game, he was the Browns' most reliable force. Defensive coordinators schemed against him. Quarterbacks scrambled away from him. And still, Garrett found a way to dominate. That's how he ended up breaking the single-season sack record. Not because the team set him up to win, but because he did what elite players do, he imposed his will. When the moment finally came, it should have been a headline. But it got caught in the ripple effect of everything else. A coaching exit, media backlash, player responses, it all blurred together. Garrett got his flowers, but not the stage he deserved. After the game, Garrett's tone said it all. Grateful but subdued, proud but aware. He knew what the record meant, but he also knew it came during one of the most publicly chaotic stretches the team had faced in years. He spoke about consistency, about what it meant to push through obstacles, but you could sense the weight of everything else pulling at the moment. His comments weren't just about the stat line. They were about professionalism. Garrett didn't engage with the mess. He let his performance do the talking. And that contrast made everything else feel even more unhinged. While others traded jabs, Garrett stayed locked in, proving that leadership isn't always about what you say. Sometimes it's about what you do when everything around you is falling apart. Browns. The Browns as a franchise were once again caught between what they wanted to be and what they actually were. The firing of Stefanski exposed how fragile the internal structure still is. No matter how much talent they collect, no matter how many highlight plays come from guys like Garrett, the instability at the top keeps pulling them back. Teams like Jacksonville, Denver, and Buffalo were facing their own inconsistencies, but the Browns' issues felt more foundational. Their struggles weren't just about play execution. They were about decision-making, communication, and long-term vision, or the lack of it. Other teams stumbled but had direction. The Browns were stumbling in every direction at once. And yet, despite all of this, they stayed in the playoff conversation. That's the part that made it even more frustrating for fans. With a little stability, with some coherent leadership, the season could have looked completely different. Instead, it became another year defined by Shedeur Sanders didn't just respond to a media personality. He responded to a system. One where coaches can bash other coaches without ever facing their own record. One where players are expected to stay in their lane, while analysts with losing careers get praised for hot takes. His response wasn't just popular, it was relevant. It opened the door for more players to challenge media narratives. It made fans reconsider whose voices actually deserve the mic. And it proved that the next generation of talent isn't afraid to reshape the conversation. Sanders may not be in the NFL yet, but his impact is already being felt. He showed that challenging outdated thinking isn't a weakness. It's part of being a leader. And if the league keeps leaning into controversy as content, players like Sanders are going to meet it head-on with receipts in hand. This drama wasn't just a moment. It was a microcosm of everything the NFL is right now. A high-stakes mix of media chaos, front office spin, player empowerment, and legacy tension. The Stefanski firing, Rex Ryan's critique, Shedeur's response, and Garrett's record-breaking season all collided to show how complicated leadership has become in the NFL. Who gets to define success? Who gets to call out failure? And who's allowed to talk back? There's something about the way NFL coaching exits unfold that always feels colder than it should. Kevin Stefanski didn't leave in scandal. He didn't lose the locker room. He wasn't at the center of some dramatic on-field meltdown. But the second he was gone, the floodgates opened, as if every missed play call and failed red zone trip was suddenly undeniable proof that he should have been gone months ago. But the truth was way messier. Stefanski had been handed a rotating quarterback lineup, a front office that made more headlines than progress, and a roster that never stayed healthy for long. And yet, he still managed to make the playoffs. That doesn't sound like failure. That sounds like someone who held the ship together while the deck was on fire. Rex Ryan didn't see it that way, and that's where this all exploded. His critique might have passed as typical analyst banter. It hadn't come off like a personal takedown, comparing Stefanski to Norv Turner, saying he underachieved with talent, and acting like the guy had done irreversible damage to the franchise. It wasn't analysis. It was a roast dressed up like insight, and Rex wasn't exactly neutral. His coaching history wasn't known for offensive brilliance. In fact, he spent years fielding some of the most underwhelming offenses in the league. That's what made his rant feel off. He acted like he had some elite insight into what great coaching looks like when his own record barely cleared .500 by the end. That's why Shedeur Sanders didn't stay quiet. He didn't just push back. He shut it down. He pointed out the obvious. Rex Ryan hadn't been on the sidelines in almost a decade, and when he was, his teams weren't exactly lighting up the scoreboard. It wasn't some long-winded thread. It was short, surgical, and undeniable. Shedeur's tweet did more than clap back. It exposed the unspoken rule that media veterans get to talk unchecked, that the louder the take, the less people question the source. But not anymore. Not when a 21-year-old QB from Colorado can call out a bad opinion in real time and spark a league-wide conversation about who should be talking and who should sit this one out. Browns matches master collection. While all that was happening online, the Browns were back in damage control. They issued all the usual statements about a new chapter and evaluating next steps. But anyone paying attention could tell it was all reaction, no direction. Stefanski had been the fall guy, and now the team was trying to play catch-up before the offseason really exposed their flaws. And those flaws ran deep. The Browns had lost winnable games, fallen apart in fourth quarters, and struggled to get production from any of their quarterbacks. The defense had kept them alive, but the offense stalled week after week. When teams like Jacksonville and Buffalo surged late in the year, the Browns were stuck in rewind, rewatching their own mistakes every Sunday. Amidst the noise, Garrett was still out there, putting quarterbacks in the dirt. His record-breaking sack wasn't just a nice stat. It was a statement that even when the coaching staff changed, when the offense couldn't deliver, and when the headlines were about firings and flame wars, he was still dominating. Photographers caught it all. Garrett breaking off the edge like a freight train, offensive lines folding like paper, quarterbacks barely getting the ball out before collapse. He was relentless, consistent, and clearly operating on another level. He made history in a season where nothing else seemed stable. Garrett wasn't gloating afterward. His tone was steady but proud. He talked about the journey, about the hours no one sees, and about the people who made the record possible. No shade thrown, no agendas pushed, Just a guy who did his job better than anyone else in the league and didn't let the surrounding chaos change his focus. What Garrett showed was that greatness doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be undeniable. And when you're that consistent, that locked in, not even a collapsing franchise or a changing staff can slow you down. If anyone earned their respect this season, it was him. Browns. Looking ahead, the Browns aren't just searching for a new head coach. They're searching for an identity. Are they a team built around defense? Are they going to invest in quarterback development again? Is the front office going to take accountability? Or will it keep pointing fingers every time things unravel? The rest of the league is watching. Teams like Denver and Buffalo have had their issues, but at least they've defined who they are. The Browns, meanwhile, keep changing the frame without addressing the foundation. That's what makes this next hire so critical. It won't just set the tone for next season. It'll decide whether the Browns can finally get out of their own way. And don't think this is the last we'll hear from Shedeur Sanders. He's not just tweeting for clout. He's paying attention. He's watching how analysts talk, how teams treat coaches, and how narratives are built. If he makes it to the league, which he's expected to, it's going to be on his terms. He's part of a generation that doesn't separate football from voice. He's willing to challenge the status quo, whether it's about scheme, leadership, or respect. And that makes him dangerous in the best possible way. Because the NFL isn't just about stats anymore. It's about stories. And Shedeur knows exactly how to shape one. This story isn't done. The Browns still need answers. Rex Ryan is still talking. And Shedeur Sanders is still watching. The only thing that's certain, this won't be the last viral storm the league sees. If you're here for all the drama, the hot takes, the clapbacks, and the chaos that makes the NFL what it is, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss what goes down next. And drop your take in the comments. Who got it right? Who needs a chill? Let's talk.